Golf today on a Monday, the big news. LPGA Tour announcing today that Commissioner Mollie Marcoux Samaan will be stepping down from her role on January 9th of next year. Liz Moore will assume the role of interim commissioner, and then the tour's board of directors will work with an executive search firm to conduct a global search for the organization's next commissioner. Damon Hack and Ryan Lavner with you as we continue to kind of wrap our minds around this news. And I'm curious, I mean, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about mixed team events. The LPGA needs the PGA Tour to kind of help. Is this an opportunity, a moment for whoever this next commissioner is going to be to kind of look to the PGA Tour in this kind of ever-shifting sands in the professional game as a whole?
Well, I think this is a seismic opportunity for the LPGA that they would be certainly keen to want to capitalize on, whether it's, you know, getting help from the PGA Tour, or subsidizing purses, or having more mixed events, or even taking it sort of on the social streets and having YouTube challenges with a Nelly Korda and a Scotty Scheffler, however you want to sort of look at that. And that's why I think, like, the LPGA is set in 2025. Right? Like, the schedule is set, you know who the star players are going to be. They have opportunity now to create an overall vision for what this tour can and should be. I think that's one of the things that Mollie Marcoux Samaan really struggled with, is that she had the business background. She shored up the financials clearly. You know, the players are making more money than they ever have before in the history of the LPGA. But let's see a big picture idea for the LPGA and what this tour can become. And look, the PGA Tour is sort of at a similar crossroads.
Sure.
Right? They're having
a lot of unknowns.
They're having an identity crisis as well. That's why you really hope that they nail this search for the next commissioner, someone who can be charismatic, someone who does have a long-term vision for how great this can be and to really capitalize on this momentum.
We promised some reaction on this Monday. Right now we're joined by Tom Abbott, LPGA insider. It's nice to see you. Did this news surprise you, Tom? Did you see this coming?
I have to say it didn't surprise me, Damon. This has been talked about behind the scenes on the LPGA Tour for a little bit. Obviously, it's been publicized by Beth Ann Nichols. She wrote an article a few weeks ago talking about the tenure of the commissioner, not necessarily saying that she was going to step down, but sort of looking at some of the issues that had happened during her time as the boss of the LPGA Tour. So it doesn't surprise me. I felt like at the CME Group Tour Championship, the season-ending event a couple of weeks ago, the new schedule for 2025 was a positive step for Mollie Marcoux Samaan. I felt like there was some more positivity around her that week, especially at the Rolex LPGA Awards, and when the sort of tour gathered together with all of its partners, I felt there was some more positivity. And so I felt like maybe she was moving forward from some of the chatter that she might step down, but obviously that wasn't the case, and this was in the workings. So I'm sad for her in a way because, you know, I've gotten to know her as the boss of the LPGA Tour, and I think she was very passionate about her job and the plight of women athletes and growing the opportunities for women and girls. So, you know, I think it's a disappointing moment for her, for you know, not continuing on in this role. But as she said in her statement, she really wants to focus on her family, which I know has been an important part for her, obviously, and also difficult. It's difficult, right? You know, having a family and being in this job and being able to commit to all of the things that you need to do. So obviously, family is very important for her, and she's going to be able to concentrate on that in the short term.
Tom, what do you think Mollie's greatest challenge or obstacle was during her tenure?
Well, I mean, I think behind the scenes, there was some work on benefits for the LPGA players. I know that she was very proud of that, moving forward to offer benefits for the players. That's not a very kind of sexy, you know, topic. It doesn't really get a lot of, you know, headlines, but that's something that's very important behind the scenes. I think she was very proud of that. I think, you know, one of the hardest things for the LPGA Tour is longevity in events. We saw a couple of events that were really sort of, you know, teetering on the edge with Toledo and Portland. Thankfully, they managed to get a sponsor for Portland, but Toledo is stepping back into a sort of dual Epson Tour, Legends Tour event. So, I mean, that's disappointing. The Founders Cup was disappointing for her with Cognizant moving away from their sponsorship. I think that was a big blow for the commissioner. And I think the television, you know, the relationship with the PGA Tour and NBC and Golf Channel was something that they were navigating, and that, that's a very important part of the tour's business. And I think that was something they were working on. So, I mean, I think, it's a disappointing situation for Mollie Marcoux Samaan to be stepping down after this period of time. But I think that John Viemeyer and the board of the LPGA will be working hard now to find a replacement. And Mollie Marcoux Samaan will still be involved in the next month or so as the transition continues. But, it's not an easy job being the commissioner of the LPGA Tour. And Mike Wan did a very, very good job at the top. And it was probably hard to come in and fill his shoes afterwards. I mean, it's not an easy job dealing with a lot of different factors that obviously we don't know all about because we don't see it day to day.
Well, what do you think her legacy is going to be then, Tom? Is it going to be the growth in purses that we've seen, tremendous growth since 2021, or will it be the shuttle buses at the Solheim, the locker rooms at Lake Nona, Terry Duffy unhappy with some of the sponsor dinners in Naples?
Yeah, I think it's a shame if those moments sort of become her legacy. I think there are some of the little things that weren't taken care of, as you mentioned, obviously became much bigger issues. They weren't directly related to Mollie Marcoux Samaan. She was not the one organizing the shuttle buses, and she was not the one organizing the locker rooms and having the right amount of lockers for the players, as you mentioned there. And she obviously wasn't the one that was dealing with the guest list for Terry Duffy's dinner. But at the end of the day, it does fall on her shoulders. And it's people not taking care of the little details. And that really makes a big difference at the end of the day. I hope that isn't her legacy. I hope that her legacy is the increase in purses and the amount of money that players are playing for. I think it's still obviously a long way below the men's game, but we know what has happened in the men's game to increase that growth. And when you look at the money list for the LPGA this year, there are some real steps forward, and players are making a very good living. They're just not making the same as the men in the equal position on the money list. That's obviously a big issue for players. They feel there should be some more equality there. But when you actually look at the amount of money that players are making, it's a very, very good living, especially inside the top 50 on the money list at the end of the year. So I think hopefully that will be her legacy. Whether it is, I don't know. I think the things that you mentioned, Damon, will certainly be in people's minds.
Tom, as it relates to a potential successor for Mollie Marcoux Samaan, what do you think his or her greatest challenge is going to be in the years ahead for the LPGA?
Well, I think you do have to figure out what's going to happen on the men's side of things and what the PIF and the Saudis are going to do and what the PGA Tour is going to do and how that's going to come together. That affects the whole of the ecosystem of the game of golf. So that does affect the LPGA Tour and what is available and the collaboration that may be ahead and how that plays out in the women's game. So that's, I think, number one. I think number two is really strengthening the relationships with sponsors and finding big corporations to get involved and to be able to really keep the longevity of events. I mean, if you look at the PGA Tour and you look at the first 7 or 8 months of the year, from January through to August, a lot of those events have been going for years, decades. They are really implanted in the community in big cities around America. That isn't always the case for the LPGA Tour. Events come and go. And I think really what the LPGA needs is to get some big corporations, some organizations to come in and to keep that longevity. If you look at the Cognizant Founders Cup, for example, that was off to a great start. And now Cognizant has moved out and it's moving down to Bradenton. So that's a big change. You look at even the Lotte Championship now, one of sort of the longest running events in Hawaii, started back in 2012. That's not that long. You're talking 15 years and an event becomes a really long running event on the LPGA Tour. That's I think one of the difficulties is to find these connections with the communities and to keep that going for a long period of time, and that then generates interest and it gets people involved and it keeps the event running for a long time. If you look at the PGA Tour event in Charlotte, Wells Fargo goes away and you have a new sponsor in Truist coming in. So I think that isn't happening on the LPGA. That's one of the biggest challenges. And I think, the media landscape is something that's very important for the LPGA Tour. They are really a global tour. You've got to have the connections in Asia. You've got to work on that market as well as the US. And obviously there may be some opportunities in Europe with the ladies European tour. So when you look at that job and the things I've just talked about, you can see how complicated it is. It's not an easy position, and finding the right person who wants to go into that environment and take on that challenge, I don't think it's an easy task. And this isn't a job where you get massive stock options and bonuses and grants. That isn't the case for the LPGA Tour. Obviously, it's well paid, but if you're a CEO and you're looking at opportunities, you may not look at the LPGA. So you need to find somebody who's really passionate about the game, who really knows a lot of people within the game of golf and can make those connections and can deal with all of the factors that are involved for being the commissioner of the LPGA Tour. It's not easy, and the players are basically your bosses, and keeping the players happy and being able to communicate with them and know what they want moving forward. It's a difficult job, and I think Mollie Marcoux Samaan did a good job. She had some failings, and it's a shame that she's stepping away. But I think it just shows how difficult this position is.